The hangar smells of oil and cold metal. February 1944, somewhere in occupied France. A massive aircraft sits under dim workshop lights, its silver skin scarred with bullet holes and scorched paint. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, 8 tons of American engineering, forced down 3 days ago by flak over the Channel coast. German engineers circle it like surgeons around a body. One man kneels by the engine cowling. His breath fogs in the freezing air. He runs his hand along the access panel, feeling the rivets, the precision of the construction. Behind him, a Luftwaffe technical officer stands with a clipboard, watching in silence. The engineer pulls a wrench from his toolkit. The sound echoes through the hangar. He loosens the first bolt, then another. The cowling falls away, and there it is. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, 18 cylinders arranged in 2 radial rows, 2,000 horsepower, the most powerful operational aircraft engine in the world. The officer steps closer. He stares at it for a long time. "How?" he whispers. No one answers. Outside, the war continues, but in this hangar, time stops, because what they're looking at shouldn't exist. Not yet. Not like this. The Americans have built something Germany cannot match, and everyone in this room knows it. The P-47 Thunderbolt was never supposed to be elegant. It was a brute. A heavyweight fighter built around a single idea, raw power. When it first arrived over Europe in early 1943, Luftwaffe pilots called it Der Jug, the jug. Fat, heavy, slow to climb, they underestimated it. By 1944, the Thunderbolt was breaking the Luftwaffe's back. It swept German fighters from the sky. It dove on convoys. It shredded airfields. And it did something no other fighter could do. It took punishment and kept flying. Pilots returned with wings torn open, tails shot away, engines streaming oil. The aircraft held together. German intelligence wanted to know why. The wreckage started arriving in late 1943. Fragments from crash sites, burned out fuselages hauled from French fields, scraps of metal marked with American stencils and serial numbers. Technicians catalogued everything. Wing spars, landing gear assemblies, armour plating, but the engines were always destroyed. Until February 1944, a single P-47D comes down near Abbeville. The pilot bails out. The aircraft belly lands in a frozen field, sliding 200 metres before it stops. The fuselage crumples, the propeller blades bend, but the engine remains intact. Luftwaffe recovery teams arrive within hours. They cordon off the site. Troops stand guard while engineers rig chains and pulleys. It takes 6 men and a flatbed truck to move the Thunderbolt. They haul it to a secure facility outside Paris, a former French aircraft factory, now repurposed for reverse engineering. The aircraft arrives at night. By morning, the examination begins. The team is small. 5 engineers, 2 Luftwaffe technical officers, a representative from Daimler-Benz, another from BMW. They've been pulled from design bureaus and engine plants across the Reich. All of them have top-level clearance. All of them have signed secrecy oaths. None of them have seen anything like this. The P-47 sits in the centre of the hangar like a monument. Even damaged, it radiates menace. The engineers walk around it slowly, taking notes. They measure the wingspan, the fuselage length, the thickness of the armour plate behind the cockpit. Everything is heavier than it should be. The aircraft weighs 17,500 pounds fully loaded. That's more than a Focke-Wulf 190 and a Messerschmitt 109 combined. It shouldn't fly. It shouldn't fight. And it definitely shouldn't outrun German interceptors at 25,000 feet. But it does. One of the engineers, Hauptmann Richter, a propulsion specialist from Munich, stands in front of the engine. He's spent 10 years designing aircraft power plants. He knows every German radial engine by heart. The BMW 801, the BMW 139, the experimental Jumo design still on the drawing board. This is different. He motions to his assistant. Together, they remove the cowling panels. The bolts come loose easily. American engineering favours quick maintenance. German designs, by contrast, require hours of disassembly just to access the spark plugs. The engine is revealed piece by piece. Richter doesn't speak, he just stares. The R2800 Double Wasp is a masterpiece of industrial design. 18 cylinders, 2 rows of 9. Each cylinder is precisely machined, perfectly aligned. The crankcase is a single forged piece of aluminum alloy, light, strong, seamless. There are no welds, no weak points. Richter pulls a flashlight from his coat and leans in. He inspects the cylinder heads, the rocker arms, the valve springs. Everything is engineered to tolerances Germany struggles to achieve even in laboratory conditions. And then there's the supercharger. It sits at the rear of the engine, a massive turbine driven by exhaust gases. This isn't a mechanical supercharger like the ones used in German fighters. This is a turbocharger, a system that recycles wasted energy to force more air into the cylinders. More air means more fuel means more power. It's elegant, it's efficient, and it gives the P-47 performance that shouldn't be possible at high altitude. Richter makes a note on his clipboard. His hand shakes slightly. Behind him, the Daimler-Benz representative leans over the engine. He's younger, arrogant. He's spent the last 2 years telling Berlin that German engines are superior. Now he's silent. The Luftwaffe officer, a colonel named Wolf, breaks the quiet. "Can we build this?" Richter doesn't answer immediately. He runs his fingers along the crankshaft housing, feeling the smoothness of the metal. Finally he speaks. "No." The word hangs in the cold air. Wolf frowns. "Why not?" Richter gestures to the engine. "The materials, the precision, the manufacturing processes. We don't have the industrial capacity." He pauses. "And even if we did, it would take years." Years they don't have. The examination continues through the night. They disassemble the engine piece by piece. Each component is weighed, measured, photographed. Serial numbers are recorded. Metallurgical samples are taken. Everything is catalogued in triplicate. One copy for the Luftwaffe, one for the Reich Air Ministry, one for the archives. The deeper they dig, the worse it gets. The R2800 produces 2,000 horsepower at sea level. With the turbocharger engaged, it maintains that power up to 25,000 feet. German engines lose performance above 20,000 feet. The BMW 801, the best radial in the Luftwaffe, produces 1,700 horsepower at sea level and drops to 1,200 at altitude. The Americans have a 40% power advantage. That's not a gap, that's a chasm. Richter pulls out the cylinder heads and examines them under a magnifying glass. The valves are hardened steel. The seats are precision ground. There's no carbon buildup, no warping, no signs of overheating. This engine has been run hard. Combat missions, high G maneuvers, emergency power settings, and it shows almost no wear. He sets the cylinder head down carefully. "How many hours on this engine?" he asks. One of the assistants checks the recovered logbook. 412. 400 hours. A BMW 801 is considered worn out at 300 hours. The Daimler-Benz DB605 used in the BF109 rarely lasts beyond 200 hours before requiring a full overhaul. The Americans are building engines that last twice as long. The Daimler-Benz man, Herr Schreiber, steps forward. He's been quiet for hours, but now he speaks. They're using automated production lines. Everyone turns. Schreiber gestures to the engine. "Look at the consistency. Every cylinder is identical. Every valve clearance is perfect. You can't achieve this with hand fitting. They're mass-producing precision components." Richter nods slowly. He knows Schreiber is right. Germany still relies on skilled machinists to hand-fit engine parts. It's slow, it's expensive, and it creates variation between engines. Some run smoothly, others develop problems within hours. The Americans have industrialized precision. Wolf crosses his arms. "What about the materials?" Richter picks up one of the pistons. It's surprisingly light. "Aluminum alloy," he says. "High strength, low weight, probably forged under pressure." He turns it over. "We use cast pistons. Heavier, less durable." "Can we switch?" Wolf asks. "Not without retooling every engine factory in Germany." Silence. The BMW representative, a thin man named Kessler, speaks up. "What about the turbocharger?" Richter walks to the rear of the engine. The turbocharger is still mounted, its turbine blades gleaming in the lamplight. "This is the key," Richter says. "This is why the P-47 dominates at altitude." He explains how it works. Exhaust gases spin the turbine drives a compressor. The compressor forces air into the engine. At high altitude, where the air is thin, the turbocharger compensates by packing more oxygen into the cylinders. It's brilliant, and Germany doesn't have it. "We've experimented with turbochargers," Kessler says. "The BMW 802, the Jumo 222, both projects failed." "Why?" Wolf demands. "Reliability," Kessler says. "The turbine blades melt under sustained use. The bearings seize. The control systems fail." Richter taps the turbocharger housing. This one works. He doesn't need to say more. The Americans have solved problems Germany can't. Morning comes slowly. The engineers work through the dawn, fueled by coffee and cigarettes. They strip the engine down to its core components: the crankshaft, the camshaft, the valve train, the oil pump, the fuel injection system. Every piece tells the same story. American industry is operating on a different level. Richter examines the crankshaft under a microscope. The surface is hardened through a process called nitriding, heating the steel in a nitrogen-rich environment to create a wear-resistant layer. It's a technique Germany knows, but rarely uses due to cost and time constraints. The Americans use it on every crankshaft. He checks the bearings next. They're made from a copper-lead alloy, precision machined to tolerances of less than 1/1000th of an inch. German bearings are good, but they're inconsistent. These are perfect. Schreiber leans over his shoulder. They're not cutting corners. No, Richter agrees. They're building for reliability, not just performance. It's a philosophy Germany abandoned years ago. With resources stretched thin and production quotas rising, Luftwaffe engines are built fast and cheap. They work well enough. They get pilots into the air. But they don't last. The Americans are playing a longer game. Wolf paces near the hangar doors. He's been on the radio twice already, updating Berlin. The reports are grim. Every new discovery reinforces the same conclusion. The Americans have an industrial advantage Germany cannot overcome. He stops pacing and turns to the group. Recommendations? Richter wipes his hands on a rag. We can learn from this, improve our manufacturing processes, invest in better materials, develop our own turbocharger systems. How long, Wolf asks. 3 years? Maybe 4. Wolf's jaw tightens. We don't have 3 years. No one argues. The room falls quiet. Outside, the sun is fully up now. Somewhere over the channel, P-47s are already in the air, escorting bombers, hunting fighters, smashing ground targets. And there's nothing the Luftwaffe can do about it. Kessler breaks the silence. What about incremental improvements, small changes to existing engines? Richter considers this. We could adopt some of their techniques, better metallurgy, tighter tolerances, improved cooling systems. He pauses. It won't close the gap, but it might narrow it. Do it, Wolf orders. I want a full report by the end of the week. Every improvement we can make, every material we can source, every process we can copy. The engineers nod, but they all know the truth. They're not reverse engineering the R2800 to match it. They're studying it to understand how far behind they've fallen. By midday, the engineers begin reassembling the engine. They photograph each step, document every detail. The Reich Air Ministry wants a complete technical manual, something that can be distributed to design bureaus and production facilities across Germany. But as they work, the conversation shifts. It's not just the engine, Schreiber says. He's standing near the P-47's fuselage, examining the armour plating. Look at this. The others gather around. The armour is thick, 1/2 inch of hardened steel behind the pilot's seat. The cockpit glass is layered, bulletproof. The fuel tanks are self-sealing, lined with rubber that expands when punctured to prevent leaks. This aircraft is built to survive, Schreiber continues. Not just to fight. Richter nods. The Americans are losing fewer pilots. They can train them longer, build experience. That's an advantage we can't quantify. German fighters, by contrast, are lightly armoured. The Bf-109 has a thin steel plate behind the pilot and nothing else. The FW-190 is better, but still vulnerable. Fuel fires are common. Pilots burn. The P-47 pilots walk away. Kessler examines the control surfaces. The hydraulics are over-engineered, redundant systems. If one fails, the backup kicks in. Typical American thinking, Wolf mutters. Brute force over elegance. It works, Richter says quietly. And that's all that matters. They move to the wings. The structure is robust, thick spars, heavy ribs, reinforced stress points. The Americans have designed the P-47 to handle punishment, 8.50 caliber machine guns mounted in the wings, 3,000 rounds of ammunition, external bomb racks, drop tanks. It's not a fighter, it's a flying tank. Schreiber runs his hand along the wing leading edge. You know what this means, don't you? The others look at him. They're not worried about weight. They're not worried about materials. They have so much industrial capacity, they can afford to overbuild everything. The implications settle over the group like a shroud. Germany is rationing aluminum, substituting steel for parts that should be lightweight alloys, cutting corners to meet production quotas. The Americans are adding weight for safety. Wolf walks to the hangar entrance and lights a cigarette. He stares out at the grey sky. "How many of these do they have?" he asks. Richter checks his notes. Intelligence estimates 5,000 P-47s in service. Production is running at 500 per month. 500 per month? Germany is producing 300 FFW-190s per month, 200 BF-109s, and those numbers are dropping as factories come under Allied bombing. Wolf takes a long drag on his cigarette. "We're not going to win this," he says. No one contradicts him. 3 weeks later, the report reaches Berlin. It's 247 pages, technical drawings, metallurgical analyses, photographs, recommendations. It lands on desks at the Reich Air Ministry, at Messerschmitt, at Focke-Wulf, at BMW and Daimler-Benz. Some engineers read it and feel despair. Others read it and feel rage. A few read it and start designing, but nothing changes. By late 1944, P-47s are everywhere. Over France, over Germany, over the Eastern Front. They escort bomber streams deep into the Reich. They strafe trains and convoys. They hunt down German fighters trying to take off. The Luftwaffe bleeds. Experienced pilots die. New pilots' last days. Aircraft production crumbles under Allied bombing. Fuel supplies dry up, and still the Thunderbolts keep coming. In the final months of the war, German engineers make incremental improvements. The FW-190D gets a more powerful engine. The Bf-109K receives better armour. The experimental jets, the Me-262, the He-162, offer glimpses of what might have been. But it's too late. The industrial war is over. America won, not because of tactics, not because of strategy, because they built better engines. The captured P-47 sits in a French hangar until August 1944. When Allied forces liberate Paris, they find it still there. Partially disassembled, surrounded by notes and diagrams and abandoned tools, the engine is gone. Shipped to Germany months earlier, lost somewhere in the chaos of the collapsing Reich. It was never seen again, but the knowledge remained. After the war, German engineers emigrate to America, to Britain, to the Soviet Union. They bring their experience with them, their understanding of what separates good engineering from great engineering. Some of them end up at NASA, others at Boeing, at Pratt & Whitney. They help build the engines that power the jet age, but they never forget the lesson learned in that cold hangar in 1944. Industrial capacity wins wars. Not courage, not skill, not ideology. Capacity. The ability to build 500 engines a month while the enemy builds 200. The ability to overbuild, to add redundancy, to prioritize pilot survival. The ability to take a 17,500-pound fighter and make it dominate the sky. The Germans examined the R-2800 and saw the future. A future they would never reach. The P-47 Thunderbolt flew 546,000 combat sorties in World War II. It destroyed 11,874 enemy aircraft. It dropped 132,000 tons of bombs. It fired 135 million rounds of ammunition. And it brought its pilots home. That was the real difference. Not the horsepower, not the turbocharger, not the precision manufacturing. The difference was that the Americans built an aircraft that could take a beating and keep flying, because they could afford to. The hangar is empty now. The war is long over. The men who stood around that engine are gone, dead, old, scattered across the world. But somewhere in an archive, the report still exists. 247 pages, a portrait of industrial supremacy, a document that explains, in cold technical language, why Germany lost the war, not on the battlefield, in the factory. The P-47's engine wasn't just powerful, it was inevitable. A product of a system so vast, so efficient, so relentless, that no amount of German ingenuity could overcome it. The engineers knew this. They knew it the moment the cowling came off. They knew it when they measured the tolerances. They knew it when they calculated the production numbers. But knowledge isn't power, not when you're on the losing side. The war taught many lessons. This was one of the cruelest. You can be skilled, you can be brave, you can be brilliant, But if the enemy can build 2 engines for every one of yours, if they can afford to make them heavier, safer, more reliable, if they have the aluminum, the steel, the oil, the factories, the workers, you lose. Not slowly, not heroically, you just lose. The German engineers examined the P-47's 2,000 horsepower engine, and they saw the end of the war. In 18 cylinders, in a turbocharger, in American steel.